Right now, 2 in 10 kids in America have the beginnings of diabetes, what we call prediabetes or metabolic syndrome. And that's not sustainable. We all are doing our job.
And that is from the way they're eating.
Absolutely. Largely, the most important contributor is calories. Absolutely. There's other factors, obviously, sedentary lifestyle, but that usually comes later in life if you don't get a handle of it. There's no question that food is fueling this fire, so to speak. And until we get a grips on the quality of food and the things that we shouldn't allow, we shouldn't permit as a nation. The fructose is a perfect example. It's one of the major precursors to chronic metabolic diseases.
Welcome to Plant the Change. I'm Michelle Fosnot, founder of Solid Rock, Florida, an innovative nonprofit that includes Solid Rock Community School, providing K-12 education, and the Sanctuary at Solid Rock, offering lifelong care for animals in need. We're a forward-thinking, eco-advanced organization dedicated to compassionate, humane education. Welcome to another episode of Plant the Change, where we celebrate individuals who champion healthy, sustainable living. Today, we are thrilled to have Dr. Jeffrey Hirshfield. Dr. Jeffrey Hirshfield has been providing comprehensive and personalized healthcare for families since 1997. His practice, located in St. Pete, Florida, specializes in the care of infants, children, adolescents, and adults, and embodies the philosophy of treating families like his own. Dr. Hirshfield is a diplomat of the American Board of Pediatrics and the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine, with a background in neurobiological sciences from the University of Florida and a medical degree from the University of South Florida College of Medicine. He completed his pediatric and adolescent residency training at All Children's Hospital, JHC, in St. Petersburg. He established his clinical research program, SCORE, in 1998 and is a certified principal investigator. As a safety consultant for the nutraceutical and pharmaceutical industries, Dr. Hirshfield promotes sustainable lifestyle interventions and has been recognized as one of America's top pediatricians. Welcome, Dr. Hirshfield.
Well, thank you.
Great to see you again.
Great to see you. Thank you for the invitation to speak about kids' health. I'm just happy that you all found that in you to have me come up here, and I'm more than happy to. We've known each other for quite a while now.
We
haven't gotten to spend as much time together through COVID with that all going on, but it's just great to be with you.
Thank you. Let's start with your journey. What inspired you to become a pediatrician, and what led you to establish your practice in St. Pete, Florida?
I grew up in largely in Seminole, Florida, a small city, and ever since then, even through my career in college career, everything was in Florida. I went to the University of Florida, as you said, and then I came back. And after my 4 years, and I came back to practice after completing a residency in 1997. I knew that I wanted to stay in the area. That was my home, and I wanted to come back. And I did. I worked from 1997 to 1998 with another physician, the pediatrician who was mine growing up. And then after that, I decided to go on my own. And I felt I could create more of what I wanted to do. From the ground up, I can create my vision of what I see in pediatric medicine. And that's where I started.
So your practice emphasizes treating families as your own. How do you ensure personalized care for each patient, and why is that approach so important to you?
So yes, personalized care is very generic, but we're not yet there from a standpoint of metabolic diseases, but personalized care meaning that there's that touch, there's that feel, that sort of that care that comes along with it. And just being on my own, as I stated, gave me the opportunity to do what I want to do to a degree. Certainly I work with insurance companies and other interested parties, but I was able to create that vision for my practice, and that personalized touch carried a long way forward for me and letting me do the things that I want to do within the context of just basic insurance-based medicine.
So you've been recognized as one of America's top pediatricians for your contributions to preventative medicine. Can you share some key strategies or interventions that have been particularly effective in your practice?
It's a good question. I think what lifestyle medicine, as you know, had really created that push for me over the last 5 to 6 years. I became acquainted through our group that we ran together through a nonprofit in Tampa, and it just reinvigorated my passion to keep this preventative posture, this holistic model to try to prevent diseases before they were happening. And it's something that's antithetical to what we see every day. Like, it's, hey, push a pill, push a procedure. But I didn't find that in my heart. I've always found it in my heart to educate first in my life, and educating patients carries the way forward. And our patients thrive under that kind of a model. And I think all patients thrive under that kind of model. So I'm obviously very interested in motivating and moving that forward in a larger way in the communities and beyond.
At Solid Rock, we promote plant-based eating through our exclusive plant-based kitchen. How do you incorporate similar lifestyle interventions into your pediatric care? And what sustainable solutions do you advocate for families?
What you're basically doing is what we should be all doing as physicians, as parents, as educators. We should all be doing it. And you lead the way. You're, in my mind, a trailblazer. I mean, you're doing things that nobody had done. I mean, you're one of two exclusively plant-based facilities, both educating and being a complement to what parents should be doing. My role is to have parents come in generally with their children or maybe their infants for the first time, and really start the process of grooming them to understand what the factors are that lead to a healthy lifestyle and lifespan and health span. So we groom them from an early time point many times, and it's really nice to see both the parents and the family, the entire unit, work together so that they can create this for themselves and for their families.
Hello, friends. You can help make a difference by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing the Plant the Change podcast. And you can visit us at solidrockflorida.org to learn more about Solid Rock Community School and the sanctuary at Solid Rock. Your support makes a real impact and helps plant the change. You can also become a sanctuary subscriber on any of our social platforms. Your monthly support helps provide food, enrichment, medical care, and the daily comfort our animals depend on. For only $4.99 a month, you'll receive exclusive private posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and eligibility for fun supporter giveaways. It's a small monthly gift that makes a huge difference in the animals' lives. Please subscribe today. Can you explain what the lifestyle medicine qualification is? So that's something that's newer for most people, and many people have no idea what it is.
Lifestyle medicine has six pillars. The traditional lifestyle medicine pillars of lifestyle medicine are really the components to leading a heart healthy life. And that is, starts with nutrition and fitness. At the top for me as a neuroscientist by heart, I still look at that aspect as one of the major pillars and probably the one that leads the way. Because as we get into trying to educate, there are obstacles along the way, naturally. I mean, we have our own external obstacles from the way things are always done, but I see it as making sure that the emotional health and well-being is there too. And that's not just for the parents, but for the children. Impart that in ways that these children can grow up to respect people, respect animals, respect the ecosystem. Just general things that I kind of push on there as well, just like you do in your school. I mean, you're doing all these great things as well, and I think that shows that compassion towards others. And I think that when I see parents and their children, I see them as a whole unit, and I try to impart my education, my knowledge base, my curiosity to help them so that they can thrive together as a family.
Yeah, it definitely takes a team for sure. So what do you think are the key advantages for adolescents in moving towards a plant-based lifestyle or lifestyle medicine? So what do you think, if you were talking to a parent, sitting down and talking to them, what can you tell them that would be most instrumental or most important for their child with making some of these changes?
Yeah, it's the same thing I start with on every patient encounter. Everybody knows that they're going to be hearing about lifestyle and lifestyle behavior. So do they know
that when they're walking into you, they know?
After the first time, I give them one time. And after the first time, they understand, obviously, coming in that I'm a holistic physician. I tend not to use as much pills and procedures. Obviously, I'm not dealing with chronic metabolic disorders, and I don't take away anything about the fact that we need medicine sometimes as a stopgap, and sometimes we need it long-term alongside lifestyle medicine. But parents come into this knowing. So whether it's a kid, a toddler, an adolescent, whenever I first engage with them, they're going to know that, our goal is to make sure that their children live as full a life with health and happiness. And I think that's a motivating concept, getting back to the emotional component or the mental health of people. We want to keep them healthy. And part of that, I think you alluded to, that emotional health is attached to what we eat. I mean, if we're going to be eating, foods that are not rich in fiber, and we're not going to drink water, but we're going to drink sugar-sweetened beverages every day, and this liquid form, I mean, we're going to over-caloric ourselves to death, literally. So I think that we have to take a pause. And once we talk to parents about that, and once we begin the discussions, we see it all evolve. We see that the changes that they're making, and many of them make changes. Some make smaller, some make bigger, some don't do as much as they could, but they're doing, they're trying. I help motivate them. I help create that venue that when they come back the next time, they have goals set for themselves that we did from the previous visit. And it's amazing what we see. I hope that answers most of what you were talking about. So it doesn't matter if they're a child or an adolescent. I'd rather catch them early than later. And the biggest changes that we make, or the changes that we make earliest in life, obviously, have the best impact and best outcomes, right? Because once you're kind of simmering inside, you're inflamed inside from those poor habits, whether it's your addiction to food largely, or it's your addiction to substances, whether alcohol or tobacco. It's easy to break habits, before they begin. But with food, there's a lot of overlay there. This is all social. You get together, people are out having drinks, they're having alcohol, may overconsume those certain foods.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that, like we said, sugar-sweetened beverages, and then they have to deal with the over-caloric part of it, where they eat too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you work your way back? So to me, once again, going back to the basics at the beginning of life in my field, it makes sense that we have to put emphasis and money and funding at the beginnings of life if we're going to create this, these more favorable outcomes.
Yeah. Now, how do you feel about the term food addiction? Because it's a term that I use sometimes when I speak. I know not everybody likes that term, but I feel like it's the biggest addiction we're dealing with in the United States, because food is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's everywhere you walk, everything you watch, every show you see, it's just everywhere. To me, it is very difficult for people to make those changes unless they have the education to make them think, right? I always tell people you can't unlearn things. So once you learn, then you have a choice to make changes or not, right? You still have choice, you have free will, you can do what you want to do. But without the knowledge, people don't even know.
That's true. And that knowledge is key. It's critical. The social interactions they keep, the parents, are they subscribing? Many of them aren't. They wouldn't without the education. So we're trying to then get to them at the point where we get to them and try to help them make and manage those changes in terms of food, for example. I mean, if anybody, just say one thing, I try to change this up to be very succinct. And I'd say, well, foods that are high in fiber and low in sugar. Avoid sugars that are added. Things like that. I use those buzzwords because I think it resonates more. And then I give them the examples. I give them the examples of how we take a 12-ounce can of Coke or a juice, a box of 12 ounces, or juice, more than a juice box, but that equal amounts. Which one's more healthy? And the answer is neither one are healthy because they don't have fiber. They don't have a way to help slow down absorption. They just get these instant spikes and movements in their bloodstream. So, which brings on a cascade of events that leads to the insulin-resistant state, which is the hyperinsulinemia, which then leads to, which then goes on to lead to chronic disease manifestations. So I'm treating mostly acute illnesses in pediatric practice, but as pediatricians specifically, I think we have to do a better job of training pediatricians because they're the ones right at the beginning of life. And they're there with the young parents as well. I just talk about the food. I talk about the fitness and
following the guidelines. It's what drives everything is our food. Too many calories. That's the cornerstone, is it's calorie, but it's not just calorie like you brought up. And I don't necessarily, if I use the term addiction, maybe I should tone and reverse that a little bit. That it may not be addiction, but people that have addictions to tobacco and other vices, they may be at more risk. But we do have data, mostly in animal studies, that showed this tendency. There's a gentleman out of California, Robert Lustig, who is a pediatric neuroendocrinologist. And he has tons of beautiful information to discuss some of the data they have, but it's pretty compelling. So I would say if you use the term addiction, you shouldn't be chastised because there are parts of the brain that become stimulated. And when overstimulated, in some people, maybe it's not everybody, but if you eat sugary products, you start feeling like I need more of that. And unfortunately, we're doing that too much. And that's what I think we're dealing with.
Is there any evidence that actually can support that a plant-based diet can positively affect a child's behavior, concentration, or academic performance?
I mean, I looked into that. I've always looked into that. There's not any really large-scale, high-quality data. But it makes sense because children or any age group, if they have one or more comorbidities, meaning they have heart disease, they have insulin resistance patterns, or even frank diabetes, that they are more at risk. So because the result is inflammation and poor immune function and a lot of other things. So I think that it's logical to assume that people that eat healthy don't have as much inflammation, they don't have as much chronic diseases. So they will generally be happier if they're eating a heart-healthy lifestyle with great nutrition. And I think that is fair.
Well, and I can tell you as an educator and being in a school with kids, we don't have sugar drinks in our vending machines. Our vending machines are going to be water or fruit juices and granola bars and things of such. But I can tell you some of them bring Cokes and sodas from home and they drink them. And you can always tell when they've had a lot of sugar. I mean, you can see it. So it's obvious. You can see immediate results. You can see it in grown-ups.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a societal issue. I think this has been in the making for over 50 years. I mean, we have data to show, the rates of all these chronic diseases that evolve. Our job, once again, is to try to prevent it from happening in the first place. But yes, there's serious societal problems. There's not money towards things that, why are we not getting rid of fructose type based products? Why are we not getting rid of that? Why are we putting our funding towards healthy choices, which is what we just talked about? Fiber, plants, fuel, good fuel for the body. It's like, like they say, if you have a revved up car, you tend to put high test gas in it. Well, we should be considering our bodies and our minds the same way, that if we want to execute and be efficient and have vitality and life and health, we have to put that greatest nutrition in our body.
What simple advice can you give to parents who want to start healthier habits at home?
I would say when you feed your kid good food, right? So you feed yourself, the mom and the dad, you feed the good food for yourself on the plate next to them, the same food. If you feed your kid the good food, most parents will, but for themselves with the young kids, they'll have not so good food. And then when the kid doesn't like the good food, what do? They give them their food that's not good. And that sets the pattern in my mind based on what I've read. The kids need to emulate their parents, and their parents have to create those patterns for them. Kids are very curious. They tend to catch this stuff real early. I see my toddlers, my 2 and 3-year-olds that are, they're really catching on. They come back into me and tell me, I'm eating broccoli, Dr. Hirshfield. I'm eating broccoli and carrots. And it's amazing. I get goosebumps every time I hear that, because I know that those parents, the entire family are committed. They're all in. And it's wonderful. So we have great outcomes. And I'm not trying to brag. I'm just saying that if any of us would just do part of that as pediatrician and pediatric specialists, we would just go so much further. We'd be able to create this wellness and happiness and healthiness so much earlier.
Do you know that in my life, I never had a doctor speak to me about what I ate? Never. So here my whole life, and then in my 40s, I'm sick with MS and lupus. And my whole life, not once through my 40s did ever one doctor, specialist, anyone throughout like 5 or 6 different states ever speak to me about food. I find that very interesting. Why is that not happening?
It's the training we get. Whether you're, an allopathic physician, or to some step maybe less as an osteopathic physician, it's just the training in general that we push things that are not lifestyle-based. We push, like we said, we push more on the pharma side. We push more procedures. We do more imaging than any nation in the world. Japan, I think, is right with us. We don't push the things that are at the root of this root of this process that we're evolving into and well entrenched. So until we recognize a change and shift in how we educate all healthcare providers, wellness coaches, all of them, until we recognize that and put that and maintain that and have funding for it, it's going to be a tough road. That's the way I'm looking at it. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I think we need to have a fundamental change where we prioritize our lives and prioritize health. And the only way you could do that is just starting early on with education through schools like yourself, who are doing a wonderful job and creating that environment and complementing families. And sometimes you're actually having to supplement that.
I think that all adults will agree that plant-based foods are healthy. So I think they'll agree with that. So it won't hurt their child to have a plant-based lunch. But whether they're really on board with incorporating that in their lifestyle beyond lunchtime at school, that's not always the case, right? So some families will, some families won't, but we try to get our foot in the door with that. And even if nothing else, that healthy lunch at school is something. We have had so many students say to us before, like, I don't have these kind of vegetables at home. I don't have this food at home. We've had students say to us, we don't buy fresh produce in our house because it goes bad too quick. And we've had many families tell us these sort of things. So they can appreciate the lunch, whether they do it at home or not. They can appreciate having that option. I don't think there's anybody who will say plant-based foods aren't healthy, but I think that sometimes they're not ready to take the next step. So when we have a team, we have a school, and we have doctors, and we have a community that is saying similar things, then it makes it easier for people. I think it's really hard when they're watching TV and they're hearing all these mixed messages. I think that that's what confuses people, and then people are just inherently lazy, right? I mean, all of us, right? We can be inherently lazy, and we want to do the easiest, quickest, less expensive thing. So it's so easy to just stick with bad habits sometimes, and really reading and listening and talking and getting educated and researching to find out what is reality.
Yeah, I think you're right in all those ways. And whole health is that. I mean, it's the what you aim for, right? And it's tough, but it happens when you have, like I said in my field at the beginnings, that you create these habits for their children, who then go on and create a nurturing environment for their children. And then from there, they get into their peer groups, and then that gives them at least a good foundation. Whereas on the other hand, if kids are growing up in households where there's not maybe as much love or connection, they see abuse in some way or witness it or experience it themselves, unfortunately, sometimes, that creates a tough go, And so as pediatricians too, we have to look for that. We have to look at all that. And you as an educator, as a teacher, as an owner, and you see that too, and you kind of work, hopefully, and I'm sure you're working with teams of people here doing the same things, like whole health teams is really the concept. I think that if we had these teams in place and more entrenched, we'd be in a much better position than we are today, because not any one of us knows all, but as a collective team, we have, with all heads together on that, we can good formulation for health and success.
So at Solid Rock, we emphasize physical activity every day with daily PE classes. How important is physical activity in your recommendations for a healthy lifestyle for children? And what tips do you have for parents to encourage their kids to stay active?
And what you're doing is wonderful. I don't know, in the school system, it's kind of all over the place, right? You're able to do these things. But having PE, absolutely. Any pediatrician should support it, and they do. They should have that every day. And you know, and the guidance is that, you know, kids should have an hour a day, you know, whereas adults, I guess they don't matter as much. They get 150 minutes a week. But the reality is just start moving. If you're not moving, move more. And that is important. It's important for your muscles. It's important for all your organs. It's decreases inflammation. It improves mental health. Through happy hormones. So, I mean, all of these things, and this is precisely why my background was in neuroscience, because I saw, I enjoyed, I relished in seeing development and how these intricacies of hormones and immune cells and brain cells all, you know, kind of work together. That's what metabolic health is. And for the kids, like I said, it's mostly infectious diseases. Give them a little antibiotic if they have strep. We need to do that. But when it comes to chronic metabolic disorders, that's a whole nother conversation we could have at some point, because that is really what we're dealing with. If you look at true numbers, you know, with the statistics out there as far as, you know, cardiovascular disease and, you know, and insulin resistance type 2 diabetes, those two factors alone evolve from the earliest ages if we don't reverse it naturally through healthy living. And it'll turn into, you know, a chronic condition, which, like I said, and you know, is going to lead to more visits to a doctor, more hospital visits, more pills, more procedures. But what are we really achieving? Maybe we'll get some symptom relief. But at the end of the day, unless you change your lifestyle, right? Like I said, the fitness and the nutrition and have loving relationships, and you know, and you don't become dependent on cigarettes and alcohol. I mean, all these things will lead to a more healthy, hearty life. And you'll be more vibrant in your later years. And that's what this whole thing about health span is, right? Living until your last day with health. That's the holy grail.
It's about moving. So whether it's walking or jogging or running or cross country or dancing or playing soccer or playing basketball or doing jumping jacks or whatever the game may be, duck, goose, whatever it is for that moment, you know, if you have someone who won't participate in that particular activity, find something else that they will participate in. Because I think the goal, and I think that lifestyle medicine goal, is literally just getting your butt off the seat, right? It's just getting the body moving.
Right. That's all very valid points. And any movement, non-exercise activity thermogenesis, we all know NEAT. That's really just any movement. You sit at a table, or I should say now these desks that are elevated and stand, you're creating calorie burn, right? So it's once again getting back to the first law of thermodynamics, right? Which is calories in, calories out from a health standpoint. And if you're over consuming, you're going to gain weight. Or if you're not doing enough activity relative to how much you consume, you're going to gain weight. So I think what you're doing is giving people an opportunity, giving your children an opportunity to embrace what they find good for them. And like you said, you have all kinds of options, so everybody partakes. But I still think it comes back a lot to the emotionality of that child. That's my feel. I think that a lot of kids, you know, if their parents aren't embracing that healthy lifestyle, certainly they will be in my practice over time. That plays a role. But having an environment where kids now, as you know, and they get older, they have their peers, and now their peers become their surrogate parents. And those peers maybe not be doing the right things, you know, and so we don't want to lose our children. We want to be there for our children when they're young, teach them good habits, whether, you know, in the nutrition sphere as well as fitness. And that fitness is important. And it's not, because these are guidelines, 1 hour a day, every day of the week. But you're giving them an hour a day, 5 days a week while they're in school. So you're doing a great job with that. And then you're complimenting them as far as giving the food. And that's great. You're giving them a plant-based meal, at least one meal. And yes, our goal ultimately is to have them eating more plant-based, high fiber, low sugar, clear, high superiority in quality. And this way they can go on and not have and struggle with metabolic diseases. 2 out of every 10 kids in America have the beginnings of diabetes, what we call prediabetes, or metabolic syndrome. And that's not sustainable. We all are doing our job.
And that is from the way they're eating.
Absolutely. Largely the most important contributor is calories. Absolutely. There's other factors, obviously, sedentary lifestyle, but that usually comes later in life if you don't get a handle of it. But, there's no question that food is fueling this fire, so to speak.
I asked a lot of questions, but I'm sure I missed something maybe that was important to you. So if I did, this is your opportunity to give some last remarks and maybe tell us something that I forgot to ask or that's on your heart to share or something we did talk about but you want to go back to give more information on.
I'm just proud that you're in our community doing the work that you're doing. It's just wonderful. I mean, I didn't realize how passionate I was going to become in the last decade or so with this, but I think it started, and I didn't want to get into this, but I will now.
Yes, awesome.
Personally, and that maybe I won't now.
No, I want you to, if you can. I want to hear it. So you've got a story that led you here, and I don't know it. And I've known you for a while now, many years, and I don't know your personal story. So I'd love to hear it.
10 years ago, I had a heart attack. It was hard. 2 young kids, my wife, and fear of losing their father, their husband. And
so was that heart attack prior to being plant-based yourself?
Well, when I first had my heart attack, I was on the soccer field with my oldest guy, Jared. He's now 26, he'll be 26. And his teammates, they were a competitive team. So we were in Seminole Rec. We were just playing around, and it was like 110 degrees. That was a summer. I got home, and after getting home, it took me 10 minutes, 15 minutes from the field to get home. I started feeling something. Like I knew something was wrong. I was feeling weak. I felt my pulse, and it was kind of like very thready. It was very light. It wasn't palpating, as fast, and it was not as bounding. And I was feeling like I was going to pass out. So I called Julie, and Julie was across the on the other side of the house. And I just had enough energy to just say, Julie, come, I need you here now. And she ran over and luckily heard me and came over. And I said, could you call the ambulance? I didn't really tell her exactly what was happening, even though I knew, what was happening. It was something that nobody should ever feel. Nobody should ever feel. And, but then, the ambulance came quickly. They ran with sirens and lights. And I said, I was alert the whole time. I felt like at times I was going to lose consciousness, but I was rushed to the hospital, STEMI alert, at Morton Plant Hospital in Clearwater. Bypassed Largo Medical Center, thank goodness, because they were booked up. And they put a stent in within 45 minutes. So that's where it all happened and started. And at the end, I guess my wife always says the same thing. And when she tells people, we became more plant-based vegan, because there was a cardiologist there at the time that came to see me that day and a half I was in the hospital and said, we asked, what can we do? And that's when the physician said, plant-based, And so she had that knowledge base back then, and she was able to give us that information. And it was after that I had to find a way through this. Like, I had 3 blockages, 20%ers, as most middle-aged men have, unfortunately. 1 in 2 men will have a heart attack by age 50. That's pretty staggering, And so it just drove me crazy in so many directions. I had to, didn't understand why it happened to me, though. You always ask, why me? Why did this happen? Well, I'm probably more on the type A personality side, right? So kind of like, some other people. And yet, I always doing a million things when I should be focusing on one thing. My wife always says, well, if you would just do one thing perfectly well, you'd be superstar, right? But you try to spread yourself out amongst 6 different things at one time, and it never works. And there's a lot to be said about that. And the emotionality, the stress in my life, trying to run a practice with my wife, and not drinking enough water, right? Not hydrating my body. You need hydration. We don't get enough hydration. The average person doesn't drink the gallon a day or 3/4 of a gallon a day. Over half our populace is dehydrated at any one time. That poses a risk, right? It creates stress, it creates cortisol, it creates blood pressure change, and pop, there goes your plaque. we started following Caldwell Esselstyn. I had at least 2 to 4 conversations with him, plus seeing him in person. Colin Campbell and I have talked many times, seen him in person and met with him. I just felt this was my group. I felt this was my group. My passion is more powerful than ever. I wish more of our community and healthcare community would feel that way. But like my wife says, you have to just do what you can do, And so finding people like you and others in our nonprofit and our, it's good. It's good. It's good where I am. But it was a tragic part of my life, like to see that, I'm a victim at such a young age. The positivity in all that is that what most men, or even now women, we're seeing getting, having heart attacks earlier and earlier, is that we can do something about it, and we can actually many times reverse some of these things. Now, with the aid of medicine, yeah, more than likely at the beginning, especially if you've had a heart attack, you may stay on a medicine because you need to stabilize whatever plaque's still in your arteries. And I think people need to realize that. Don't be a victim, don't be a victim in the first place. Don't be somebody like me. I almost lost my life, my family, and they almost lost me. So that's my story, and sorry about the beginnings of it, but
you know
it's
what?
emotional.
You just told a story that I think many of us have experienced. I mean, my story, and I mean, my life changed, and I have MS and lupus, and my personal health and sickness journey is what led me to where I am. And clearly, that is the same with you. And that's the same with most of the people that I interview.
That's true.
That's what got us here, right? And we need to be here because we need to be talking, because most of the doctors aren't talking. Pharmaceutical companies sure aren't talking. Food industry sure isn't talking, right? So it takes us speaking out and saying, this is what we've experienced. Let me tell you what I've learned. Because without that, people won't know anything. So your story is, I think, the most compelling piece of information you can share with people. Because people, when we talk to the doctors, I hear this all the time from people. They say, I listen to the doctors talk and I'm like this, because you're shooting out all the science. And a lot of people, they can't take that in. But when you share your story, we can all feel that. We can all take that in, and everyone can relate to that. So whether it's their parent or their brother or their spouse or whoever, right? They can relate to that. But when they hear the science, it's above a lot of people's heads and stuff they don't even want to know. They just want to know, how's it going to affect me? Yeah. And actually what I teach kids is a lot of things kids are thinking, and adults think the same way, is what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Everybody wants, what's in it for me? Well, your health and your life and extra years and being with your family are what's in it for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's the health aspect of it can't be overstated. Ocean Robbins made a quote in 2023: if you have your health, you have 1,000 dreams. If you don't have your health, you have just one dream: to get it back, get your health back.
So let's say someone is watching us and they're from the Tampa Bay area where your practice is. They can find you in St. Pete. How do they look you up and find you?
I mean, we have a website. Our pediatric website is pediatricgrowth.com.
Well, Dr. Hirshfield, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your insights with us and your personal journey. Your dedication to promoting healthy, sustainable living for families is very inspiring. I love what you're doing. We're grateful for the invaluable care you provide to the St. Pete community and beyond. And hopefully all of our listeners here today have received some of this great information that you shared. I highly encourage everyone in the area, in the Tampa Bay area, to consider Dr. Hirshfield for their pediatric and family healthcare needs. I love him. I've sent my own family to him. He is terrific. So we are here for you. We love you, and I'm sure we'll be talking much more in the future.
Thank you. We love everything you represent, and we love you.
Thank you.
And thanks again for having me.
Thank you very much.
The Plant the Change podcast explores how education drives societal transformation, nurturing compassionate and responsible citizens, and plants the seeds of change for a better tomorrow. At Solid Rock, Florida, we're a nonprofit committed to compassionate, humane education, an approach that blends academic excellence, ethical responsibility, and emotional growth. We're doing something unique, and we need your support to expand our impact and strengthen our efforts to create lasting change. Visit solidrockflorida.org and click the donate button at the top of the page to see our current initiatives. You choose where your contribution goes, and every tax-deductible donation, no matter the amount, is greatly appreciated. Show your support and stay updated on future episodes and initiatives by following Plant the Change on YouTube and Solid Rock on Facebook and Instagram, at Solid Rock Community School and